And if so, could you just identify yourself by name so that we're sure that we have you all, and which agenda item you're here to speak to?
So I'm Elizabeth Norman. I'm here as a guest for representing Connecticut Explored.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
I'm Paul O'Sullivan. I'm representing the town of East Hartford.
Thank you, Paul.
Good morning, Tammy Reardon, representing the town of New Milford.
Thank you, Tammy. Okay, anyone else? All right.
Hi, Mary Falvey is calling in for Connecticut Preservation Action.
Thank you, Mary. All right. Well, let's.
Sarah, I believe Jane Montanaro is also on the phone. She might have moved away for a minute.
Okay. Given the format of the meeting today, and that a few of you are first-time visitors, I just want to review the call-in format and a few procedural items. So the first thing that will happen is I will read a motion, and I will ask that it be moved and seconded by council members. There'll be a brief staff presentation, and then council members have an opportunity to ask the presenting staff member for any questions or comments with regard to the application. And once all the questions are addressed, and sometimes the staff member will call on actually a member of the organization to answer the question. And then once we get past the question period, people who wish to give statements either for or against this particular application, excuse me, are invited to do so. And when everyone has been heard, a roll call vote will be taken. And if anyone has any statements, written statements that they wish to submit to the record, they can be emailed to Jonathan Kinney at ct.gov. That's JONATHAN.KINNEY@ct.gov. And lastly, just because people have different size screens and are calling in from different platforms, before speaking, we just ask that you re-identify yourself, just so that we are clear who's speaking for our minutes. Okay.
Sarah, we have a hand raised. Nanette.
Hello, I just didn't introduce myself. Nanette Armstrong, representing the Calkins Family Association. Well, I've applied for a grant. I'm not on this agenda. I hope to be on next month or maybe even March. I'm working on with the IRS, and do I need to finish that statement? Thank you for letting me tune in.
Okay. Thank you, Nanette.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who has joined the call in a moment, in the last few moments? All right. So all council members and staff have been presented with a copy of the DECD ethics statement and the governing state statutes. Having reviewed them and today's agenda, members of the council and staff are asked to disclose any affiliation with entities or projects that may create a conflict of interest as defined by agency policy and pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes 1-79 through 1-89 entitled Code of Ethics for Public Officials. Once disclosed, the member or staff may recuse themselves from that particular agenda item. I want to verify if council members or staff members have any conflicts with any of the agenda items today. Are there any?
Sarah, this is Tom.
Yes.
I was involved with a project down in Fairfield,
Okay.
but I'm not involved with this project. So I don't know if I need to recuse myself or not.
So this is something that you have worked on in the past on another phase.
Yeah.
And you have no affiliation, don't gain in any way from this particular project being funded. It doesn't sound like a conflict of interest, but does anybody else feel otherwise? Okay. So, Tom, thank you. Anyone else? All right. The next agenda item, number 4, is the review and the approval of the December 2nd, 2020 minutes. Are there corrections to the minutes as presented?
Morning, Sarah. This is Marguerite. I did submit some suggested edits to Jonathan before the meeting.
And those were grammatical edits as opposed
Yes.
to content edits? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and anyone else? So I had one thing which was way down in the minutes. Let's see if I can bring them up. It was with regard to the conversation we had on cost escalation, and it was a review of when we were talking about the Turner Cost Construction indices, the word that was used, let me just get to that. It was said, presentation on cost escalation, including demonstrating a tool. I think I would say demonstrating a chart as opposed to a tool, just for clarity.
Sure, no problem.
Okay. Are there anyone have any other edits? All right. A motion to approve the minutes with the revision noted, which would be Marguerite's grammatical and my word change.
This is Marguerite, so moved.
A second?
Second, Kathy.
Hey, Kathy, thank you. Okay. All right. All those in favor, I'm going to call a roll call vote. And I'm going to do this from memory, so hopefully I'm going to get this right in an alphabetical order. All right. Marguerite Carnell.
Aye.
On a motion to approve. Tom Elmore.
Aye.
Karen Gilvard.
Aye.
Let's see, Leah Glazer isn't here. Kathy Maher.
Aye.
Sarah Nelson, abstain. Sarah Sportman.
I have to abstain because I wasn't here last meeting.
All right. Okay. Did I forget
Sarah.
anyone?
Madam Chairman, it's Christine Nelson. I'll abstain.
Christine, because you were not here last.
For you alphabetically.
That's right. It did throw me off. Okay. So 2 abstentions and the rest approved. So the motion carries. All right. The first grant is a Partners in Preservation grant. This is agenda item 5A. And let me read the motion. The Historic Preservation Council votes to award a Partners in Preservation grant for the Community Investment Act of the State of Connecticut to the below listed applicant in the amount shown. All grant guidelines and state requirements shall be met by the below listed applicant upon receipt of a grant as administered by the Department of Economic and Community Development. Staff recommends the application for funding. The applicant is Connecticut Explored Incorporated. The project is Historic Preservation Education and SHPO News, published in 4 quarterly issues of Connecticut Explored magazine. The grant amount, and before I read this, Mary, should this be $20,000 or $12,000?
$12,000.
$12,000. Okay, so $12,000. All right. Is there a motion to move?
Kathy, motion.
Kathy Mauer, a motion. Okay, thank you. A second.
Second.
Was that Christine?
Christine Nelson.
Okay, thank you. Happy New Year, everybody. So staff does recommend approval of this application. SHPO has been sponsoring Connecticut, one of the sponsors of Connecticut Explored for the last several years, generally in the form of a 2-year grant to cover basically issues and articles specifically in the magazine. However, we did meet with the publisher on Monday because we'd like to start supporting some of the other excellent work they've done in schools with teachers and children. And so this application, or at least the budget, represents the first year expenses of $7,000 and then $5,000 to develop and explore and research materials to present an application a year from now to further develop school curriculum and relationships with teachers. That is the application. Elizabeth Norman is here to answer any questions that I can't.
This is Sarah, a clarification question, Mary. So the reason I was asking you about the grant amount was the budget worksheet that goes. Can you explain that? Because it adds up to 20.
Right. When I sent out the motion, I should have also sent out a revised budget. But I did discuss it with Elizabeth. They had initially asked for 20,000 over 2 years for things related to the magazine. But after our discussion, because we reduced it to a 1-year grant, we determined what the first year funding would be, which was the 7,000, and then we asked them what they would need for the curriculum, and that was 5,000. So we really should have asked for a budget revision. I just didn't know if there was time to advertise that or to get it to the council.
Okay. I think for the record, that definitely needs to be part of this application so that it's clear what it is that we're voting on and approving.
Mm-hmm. Let me. Okay.
So we have 2 questions, Sarah. Kathy Marr and Elizabeth Norman have hands raised.
Kathy.
Hi. Hey, Elizabeth. Hey, Liz. Yeah, that was basically my question too, was about the budget. So this isn't going to, I don't know, maybe you're going to explain this now, but this is going to lessen what you've been doing in the past, because Explored has always asked for more than $12,000 in years past. It's always been like 20. So I'm concerned that might jeopardize some of the consistency that you've already developed over many, many, many years.
Is that a question to me?
Sure, yes.
This wasn't
I think Elizabeth,
appropriate for me to talk, that's all.
Yes. Could you address the question?
Yeah, and Mary was probably going to get to this, but what I want to make clear is the 2-year grant wasn't really split evenly 10 and 10. Was typically in the second year, and what we asked for in the second year of this grant, which now is not part of the request, was the historic preservation themed issue, which we've done every other year with about $6,000 of SHPO support. So we were still planning that for spring of 2023. And I would hope to put that into the new grant that comes in after a year, but at the same time address the SHPO staff's interest in, or maybe using that content that we develop, not just for our typical magazine audience, but for new audiences, school groups, and other non-traditional audiences, sort of more aligning it with the strategic plan of the SHPO. So that kind of explains this. 7,000 for this year would continue, which we're very, very grateful for, the sight lines, and we're going to do some podcasts on preservation topics, and support for promoting the historic preservation coverage of SHPO and historic preservation topics for this year. And then question kind of is to be seen whether the historic preservation themed issue fits into next year's grant.
Okay, Kathy, does that answer your question?
Yes, as long as it doesn't leave them short in fulfilling what they normally do. That was my concern. Thank you.
Other comments or questions? Okay. So my feeling is it's a very worthy endeavor. And I'm just concerned about the technicalities of the grant application not matching the funds. So I would like to see that budget explanation sheet be updated to reflect that information and made part of the grant application. There are two choices before council. We can delegate that to the staff to work out during the next step if we approve this, or we can table this application to next month to allow the budget worksheet to be corrected.
Sarah?
Yes.
Karen, I'm happy delegating that to staff. This is an applicant who's been before us before and has a good track record.
Thank you, Karen.
Saying.
Any other comments from council members?
I'm comfortable too, and this is Christine Nelson with just a confirmation that it worked out.
This is Marguerite. I agree.
Okay. All right, and Tom?
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Okay. Okay. All right, so that being said, on a roll call vote to approve, Marguerite Carnell?
Aye.
Tom Elmore?
Aye.
Karen Gilvarg?
Aye.
Kathy Maher?
Aye.
Sarah Nelson abstain. Christine Nelson?
Aye.
And Sarah Sportman?
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next grant, let me bring that one up. 5B. The Historic Preservation Council votes to recommend the award of a survey and planning grant funded by the Community Investment Act of the State of Connecticut to the below listed applicant in the amount shown. All grant guidelines and state requirements shall be met by the below listed applicant upon a receipt of a grant is administered by the Department of Economic and Community Development. Staff recommends the application for funding. The applicant is Fairfield Museum and History Center. The project is ground penetrating radar, GPR, prospection archaeological survey, and the grant amount is $20,000. Is there a motion to move?
Kathy, move.
And a second?
Marguerite, second.
Marguerite, second. Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you. So staff does recommend the application for funding. I did have to rely heavily on the assistance of our staff archaeologist, Kathy Labadia, but after working back and forth with the applicant over the scope, we're comfortable with the scope and the amount of funding. And this is basically to do not a predictive model, but as they move forward with work on the historic properties in this area, they just want to make sure they're not they're being mindful of underground resources. Nobody from the Fairfield Museum had a conflicting meeting this morning, so they could not be here to answer any questions, but I will try.
This is Sarah. Are there questions on this application?
Yeah, this This is
Karen?
Tom. I have
Yeah.
a question.
Hold on 1 second. We've got 2 people.
Go ahead, Tom.
Sorry.
Karen started first, Tom, and then I'll call on you.
Who's faster on the unmute?
Yeah.
I wondered if there was any evidence to suggest that there might be unmarked graves of enslaved people on either property, the Burr property or the burying ground.
I don't know that that's known yet. That would, I know that the application is for GPR, but there will be other research conducted to determine that, but I don't know that they know that.
Okay, and GPR is not dependent on metal objects, correct? It just determines things via.
Mary, you want some help here?
Yeah, I do.
So GPR will identify anomalies in the soil. So could it potentially pick up burials? Yes, it definitely could. The problem with GPR, and this is where we are going back and forth, is it doesn't tell you what the anomaly is. It just tells you that there is an anomaly. And usually if you have somebody experienced, a grave shaft is a pretty obvious feature, but it still could be something else. So one of the things that we had talked about is, you know, there are features that they know are out there. And so as future planning, they know for sure they want to avoid those features. So the GPR will help them find out where these things are actually located on the ground, and the ability to pick up other features that could be out there for future study. Does that help answer?
Very much, thanks.
Thanks, Kathy.
Karen, did you have any other questions before we move to Tom? Okay, and Tom, you wanted to ask a question.
Yeah, in the application, there was a map that basically covered the entire site plus the cemetery. Are they planning to do GPR work on that entire area or select pieces of those different properties?
So the goal is to do it on select pieces. And like I said, you know, most of it is going to be a targeted survey to identify these locations that they suspect there are buried features. But in order to accommodate finding those features, you're going to have to look at a broad swath. So there is a targeted approach, but it's going to be a larger area.
Okay. No, that's good because I didn't think the budget was nearly large enough to do all of that acreage.
Correct.
Good. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Sarah, it's Kathy.
Yes, Kathy.
Yeah, I was really happy to see this. And I wanted to ask Kathy specifically because so much down there is in the flood zones, and not the 500 year, that's the like 100 year. So I think that this project is probably more urgent than anything else to find out what the next disaster is how the next disaster is gonna impact it. So Kathy, have you talked to them about the issues of flooding in these places? And I'm not even quite sure what the question is. My concern is the fact that all of this has got to get captured quickly.
Yes. So I can tell you how it's going to help in 2 ways. I mean, first of all, the best step of preservation is knowing what you need to protect. So right now, they don't even know what that universe looks like. So that'll be the first step. The other great thing about GPR is it's going to give them a depth of what those deposits are. So when you're talking about flood protection or, you know, other kinds of future development or what those impacts might be, you'll know exactly at what level you need to start worrying about it. So, you know, for flood protection, it may be as simple as putting a cap on it or, you know, providing some other type of bermed measures. And I'm not familiar enough with the landscape to actually put out those recommendations, but having that information of what is there and what the depth of the deposits are will help inform any future planning.
It's great. I was so happy to see that, so.
Okay, other questions about this application? All right, not hearing any further questions. On a roll call vote to approve. Marguerite Carnell.
Aye.
Tom Elmore.
Aye.
Karen Gilvard.
Aye.
Kathy Maher.
Aye.
Christine Nelson.
Aye.
Sarah Nelson abstain, and Sarah Sportman.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Great, thank you.
So the next is agenda item 5C for the town of Essex. The Historic Preservation Council votes to recommend the award of a survey and planning grant funded by the Community Investment Act of the State of Connecticut to the below-listed applicant in the amount shown. All grant guidelines and state requirements shall be met by the below-listed applicant upon receipt of a grant as administered by the Department of Economic and Community Development. Staff recommends the application for funding. The applicant is the town of Essex. The project is consulting services of a CFR qualified architectural historian to prepare a National Register nomination for Essex Village, and the grant amount is $20,000. I have a motion to move.
It's Kathy, motion move.
Kathy Marr, and a second.
Christine?
Christine Nelson, a second. Okay, thank you.
Thanks. So staff does recommend approval of this application as well. Jenny, our National Register Specialist, and I did meet with the applicant just to make sure that the funding they're asking for will cover the scope, and we are comfortable that it does. And I believe the planner, the Essex planner, is here in case you have some questions that I can't answer.
Are there council member questions about this application?
Sarah?
Yes.
It's Kathy. I just wanted to make sure that, Mary, everybody's happy with who they select to write the nomination.
Yeah, well, yeah, and we will move forward with the town if they're awarded this grant. As you know, certain resources in certain districts require, sometimes require specific expertise. So we will work with them. They'll obviously hire someone that's meets the Secretary of the Interior's, professional qualification standards. But then beyond that, we'll recommend that they put certain expertise in the RFP.
Thank you.
Mary, this is Sarah, and I had a question about the two things. One is on the timeline. There's 2 weeks for solicitation and 4 weeks for the review of the proposal. And I suspect that it's going to need to be reversed.
That should be reversed. We generally recommend at least 21 days to receive. That should be reversed, definitely. Okay.
And then the last question that I have on page 11 of the application, where they have an amazingly clear overlay graphic for the properties that are going to be studied. The question that I had is that the boundaries on the north side, I think I understand because of boatyard and kind of industrial things, but on the south side, I was curious why the boundaries didn't go further down and capture some of the properties that are actually on the south side of the peninsula, like going down, is it Shoals? I can't read this map.
Yeah.
Lane. So could you just answer that?
Yeah, this is the boundary as presented by the town, what that they're considering, but as we explained to them in our meeting, the boundary will be determined under the process of the nomination, and that would be in consultation with the professional consultant and Jenny. This is just to give you an idea of the area that they want to explore, but obviously for National Register, we recommend the most logical boundary that fits within the area of significance and the period. So this is not the boundary. It will most likely be revised.
Okay. And John has his hand raised.
Hi, yes, thank you. For the record, I'm John Guskowski, the town planner for the town of Essex and the applicant on this application. And at first, I'd just like to say how lovely it is to have a Christine Nelson sighting. I haven't seen her for a while. The reason that the map is a little bit more limited than I think it will ultimately turn out to be is that map was based on a limited survey that was conducted under a prior SHPO planning grant about 9 years ago, where the 3 historic villages of Essex, Centerbrook, and Ivoryton were surveyed, and there were between 30 and 50 properties surveyed for each of those villages. And so we basically just used that map as our basis, but we recognize that particularly Scholes Lane was neglected, as well as a couple of properties perhaps on South Main or North Main Street. But so again, this is mainly as a preliminary illustration of where we're going to focus, but the final determination will be based on our consultant.
Thank you for that clarification. Kathy, you have your hand up?
Me, Kathy? No?
Yep. Yeah.
Well, that was from the last question, probably.
Okay. Are there other people other council members who have questions? Okay, anyone else from the public? All right, not hearing any further. On a roll call vote to approve, Marguerite Carnell.
Aye.
Tom Elmore.
Aye.
Karen Gilvard.
Aye.
Kathy Maher.
Aye.
Christine Nelson.
Aye.
Sarah Nelson abstain, and Sarah Sportman.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. All right, agenda item 5D. The Historic Preservation Council votes to award a stewardship relief grant funded by the Community Investment Act of the State of Connecticut to the below-listed applicants in the amount shown below. All grant guidelines and state requirements shall be met by the below-listed applicants upon receipt of a grant as administered by the Department of Economic and Community Development. The purpose is basic utility costs per grant guidelines. The applicants are Bethany Historical Society for $1,000, Connecticut River Museum for $1,000, Fairfield Museum and History Center for $1,000, Historic New England for $1,000, for total funding of $4,000. Is there a motion to move?
Kathy,
Move
move forward.
Kathy Maher, and a second.
Karen, second.
Karen Gilvard, second. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. We're still offering our stewardship relief grant, and these are the applicants for this month. We do recommend approval. We've given grants to all, but I believe the Bethany Historical Society, so it's always great to get new awareness, to new organizations. And all the applications, as usual, I just put the application and the certificate of eligible actual costs and the invoice spreadsheet, but I can attest that all the rest of the required information has been received.
Are there any questions for Mary about these?
Mary, it's Kathy, I'm sorry. How much of that fund is left?
We put a cap of 200,000, and we have so far granted, about 56,000. So actually, we've been, as you know, first out of the gate, we had a few applications, and then for a couple of meetings, we had at least 10 or 20. And then for the last couple of meetings, we've had about 2 to 4. So it's kind of steady, but definitely less. And we have continued to advertise that it's available, and especially if I'm speaking with a prospective applicant to the Survey and Planning Grant or even the HRF grant.
Yeah.
I don't know that we would expect another surge because we've kind of kept the publicity up.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, on a roll call vote to approve, Marguerite Carnell.
Aye.
Tom Elmore.
Aye.
Karen Gilvard.
Aye.
Kathy Maher.
Aye.
Christine Nelson.
Aye.
Sarah Nelson abstain, and Sarah Sportman.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. All right, the next agenda item is 5E for the town of East Hartford. The Historic Preservation Council votes to award a certified local government historic preservation enhancement grant funded by the Historic Preservation Fund of the Department of the Interior National Park Service to the below listed applicant in the amount shown. All federal and state grant guidelines and requirements shall be met by the below listed applicant upon receipt of a grant as administered by the Department of Economic and Community Development. Staff recommends the application for funding. The applicant is the town of East Hartford. The project is consulting services of a CFR qualified historical architect and appropriate team to prepare a condition assessment of the Macon's Beamont House, 1761, located in Martin Park, 307 Burnside Avenue, East Hartford. The grant amount is $20,000. Is there a motion to move?
Marguerite, so moved.
Marguerite has moved it. A second.
Kathy, second.
Kathy Maher, second.
Okay. So staff does recommend this application for funding. Switching gears towards the federal side of our grant making. This is as you all know, a certified local government grant, which is available to any of our 51 CLGs through the federal funding. And it is for a condition assessment with a focus on the town really wants to develop more of a maintenance plan, maybe a cyclical maintenance plan, and get an understanding of obviously what the capital needs might be and what they might cost as they move forward with budgeting. I believe Paul O'Sullivan with the town is here to answer any questions that I can't.
Do council members have questions about this application? Kathy.
So there were no interior pictures that I saw. I was just wondering about just a verbal on what the interior is and what you're expecting the report to include.
I'm sorry, Mary, you want me to take that?
You could start, but I can also.
Okay. The interior's in pretty good shape, but if we'd like to do the look at the whole house, interior and exterior for this grant. We're kind of trying to do our historic preservation work right from the beginning rather than a piecemeal approach where we address problems as they pop up. So that's really the reason behind the application.
I know we've discussed, the cost of a condition assessment, but we do, when we award these grants, we do require that it be, a top to bottom, inside out systems, a complete. Yep. But I will note, and I'm sorry I didn't catch that, I will ask for interior photos in the future as we get these.
Mm-hmm.
This is Marguerite. I have a question. Are there existing drawings of this building?
Do you mean like architectural drawings?
Yes, plans and elevations.
Not that I'm aware of, but I would have to check. The Historical Society may have something, but I'm not aware of any architectural plans for the building.
And that's something that we also try to determine before the RFP goes out, because that will affect obviously the cost and the deliverable. So. Okay.
Marguerite, did you have a follow-up question?
Sorry.
No, that's it. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay. Kathy, you have your hand up?
Nope, that was last time too.
Okay.
I know I ask a lot of questions.
No,
they're good.
It's trying to decide if it was a new hand up or an old hand up, if it's the same hand up. Okay. Any other comments or questions? All right. On a motion to approve, Marguerite Carnell?
Aye.
Tom Elmore?
Aye.
Karen Gilvard?
Aye.
Kathy Maher?
Aye.
Christine Nelson?
Aye.
Sarah Nelson abstain, and Sarah Sportman?
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, the next agenda item is 5F, for the town of Roxbury. The Historic Preservation Council votes to award a certified local government historic preservation enhancement grant funded by the Historic Preservation Fund of the Department of the Interior National Park Service to the below-listed applicant in the amount shown. All federal and state grant guidelines and requirements shall be met by the below-listed applicant. Upon receipt of a grant is administered by the Department of Economic and Community Development. Staff recommends the application for funding. The applicant is the town of Roxbury. The project is reprint publications for historic preservation public awareness effort, and the grant amount is $6,359. Is there a motion to move?
Kathy, motion?
And Kathy Maher, and a second?
Marguerite, second.
Marguerite Carnell, okay.
Okay, thank you. So staff does recommend approval of this application. The bulk of the funding is going to go to the walking tour publication, which we have funded we funded the initial research and design quite a while ago. And then we did fund a reprinting, and I did include it in the application. Their initial request, years ago was just to develop, an historic preservation education tool. But as you can see from the application, they feel a more urgent need to renew that awareness of Roxbury's historic resources. Georgette Miller submitted the application for the town of Roxbury, but she could not be on the call today. So I will try to answer any questions that you have.
Are there council member questions? Sorry, someone.
It's Kathy.
Yes, Kathy.
That's a real life hand this time. So it's a lovely publication, and it's a little old fashioned, I think, now in the narrative. Is there a plan to update the narrative, include a more diverse story about all of these places? It's
no, yeah, they did not submit a plan. However, I can express that if we want to make that a condition. I know that it would speak more fully to our state plan, and it is something that we are working on. It's in our state, but we have not actually codified a policy for that. But so we are kind of just reviewing applications as they come in. But that is something that we need to examine every time. So if we can certainly make that a condition. Or
I think that in that case, it might cost a little more money to do more research, bring in
a lot more money.
Right. It's not a printing. Right.
It's just not a reprint. Depending on how long it takes them to go through a bulk of this printing material, maybe that it can be a concurrent thing. But yeah, I think that it's terrific to have the document available electronically, but I think that its narrative needs to be more consistent exactly with SHPO's and how people think and learn and acquire information, particularly in educational curriculum based. So it should be a stronger tool for a modern audience.
Yep.
This is Christine. I agree. And Kathy, thank you for consistently bringing that up. Could we invite Roxbury to apply for a concurrent grant or coming up to do that work?
Yes, that would be allowable. I mean, technically, but I think it's a good idea as well. So yeah.
Great, thanks.
Can you have a concurrent grant, or can they have to finish one and then apply for the other?
They can apply for a certified a supplemental CLG grant. You can have one each of those at the same time.
Okay. So Mary, I have a question about the grant request in the applicant's information is $3,179, and the motion was the $6,359.
Yes, it was. And we actually never require a match for our historic preservation enhancement grants. So let me just, I'm sorry, I don't have that one. Let me just take a quick look at the budget.
It's on page 2.
Okay. Oh, no. Sorry. Of course I know. Okay. We can either revise the motion to reflect the amount they asked for, which was the 3,179. I should have called that to their attention. I'm not sure how we want to.
Well, you know, here's one thing with the point that Kathy is making. Do you want to, and since nobody from the town of Roxbury is actually on the call to have a conversation with them, do you want us to table this to allow an opportunity to have a fuller conversation?
Yeah, I think that's actually a good idea. Yes, I think that's a good idea. We've been in discussion for a while on this application. And so I think taking council's comments and suggestions back to them might result in a fuller application that would better meet, you know, our goals and objectives and the concerns and the suggestions of the council. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So then I would be looking for a council member to make a motion to table without prejudice, and would you want it to next month's meeting, Mary? Which I'm just looking at, the date is the 3rd.
I think that if I speak to Roxbury today, that will probably be enough time to get something in for the February. If not, they will just resubmit, you know, when they're prepared.
Okay. All right. So,
Sir, Tom Elmore,
yes, Tom.
I have a question, Mary, based on the discussion we're having. So it sounds like we're going to recommend that they increase their request. Do the capabilities in, quote unquote, in the tent to embellish per Kathy's discussion, or do they need to ask for significantly more dollars to bring in a consultant to do that? And if so, I'd like to see them come back once with a full understanding of how they want to address it and make sure they have enough money to do the bigger picture.
Yeah, that's a good point. If they were to come back with an historic preservation enhancement grant, the cap is 20,000 without a match. I don't know. I mean, they've determined that, you know, close to 7,000 is what they require for this ask. Is $13,000 enough for a consultant to do additional, you know, research? I can talk about that with the rest of the staff and see what they think. I don't know that it will be, but we can.
I would just hate to see them come up short.
Mm-hmm. Sure. And Frank, I mean, again, they also have they could just come in for a supplemental certified local government grant. That does require a match, but it does cap at a higher amount of 30,000. So, you know, we can discuss what their options are. But I think either with the advice of council and then also consultation with the rest of the staff, we might come up with what an appropriate budget would be, you know, for what we're suggesting.
I suspect they have an immediate need for actual copies, but maybe they can do that, not print as many, and then start on this bigger project.
Mm-hmm. So Mary, it's Kathy, to that point, maybe Tom's suggestion is good if they did not develop as large a run. And then maybe this is a perfect opportunity, depending on how ambitious they are, a partnership with the humanities to get a capacity building grant to really bring in humanities scholars to help put a comprehensive document together. It's just a thought.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments for Mary? So what we will need is a motion to table this application without prejudice to the February 3rd, 2021 council member meeting. Can someone make the motion?
Kathy, motion to table without prejudice?
To the February 3rd.
To the February, yes, thank you, sorry.
Okay. Second?
Christine, second.
Christine Nelson is the second. On a motion to approve the tabling, Marguerite Carnell.
Aye.
Tom Elmore.
Aye.
Karen Gilvarg.
Aye.
Kathy Maher.
Aye.
Christine Nelson.
Aye.
Sarah Nelson abstain, and Sarah Sportman.
Aye.
Okay, the motion to table is approved.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. 5G. In my agenda packet for 5G, I actually don't have the motion, which I'm not sure why that is. Is there somebody who has that who could read the motion?
Sure, this is Erin. I can read it for you. Oh, my dog has great timing. Sorry about that. Agenda item 5G, the Historic Restoration Fund grant for Preservation Connecticut, $20,000 for exterior painting of the boarding house headquarters of Preservation Connecticut. So the Historic Preservation Council votes to recommend the award of a Historic Restoration Fund grant funded by the Community Investment Act of the State of Connecticut to the below listed applicant in the amount shown. All grant guidelines and state requirements shall be met by the below listed applicant upon receipt of a grant as administered by the Department of Economic and Community Development. Staff recommends this application for funding. The applicant is Preservation Connecticut and the amount is $20,000.
Thank you, Erin. A motion to move this?
Kathy, motion to move?
And a second?
Second.
Sorry, I heard two people speaking at once and I could see two people speaking. Karen, did you second that?
I did.
Yeah, okay, Karen is the second.
So just some background, the SHPO office recommends this application for funding. Jane Montanaro is on the phone and can answer any questions you might have. Preservation Connecticut requests $20,000 to prepare the surface and paint the exterior of their headquarters, the Eli Whitney Boarding House in Hamden. The paint has been failing noticeably and repainting is now crucial to protect the wood clapboards. And as a statewide historic preservation nonprofit, I believe that they will perform the work to the standards.
Okay, do council members have questions about this application? Okay, this isn't a question. This is Sarah. Just an observation. When I was looking at the photographs, there seems to be a lot of moisture that's pushing the paint film out, particularly on the north side. Is part of the work that was done to get organized for this application, is there any concern about the humidity in the indoor environment and if that's contributing to some of the accelerating failure?
So when I worked there, they installed a new HVAC system to remedy some of that. There were ice dams that they also remedied by insulating, Jane, was it the attic? And so they've made interior changes to make sure that they were ready to do this project.
Yeah, a few years ago, we had significant ice dams on the north side of the building, and there were issues with the gutter installation. We had just done the roof and the gutters, and there were some issues that needed to be resolved with that. The ice dams have not returned, and Rick Weiss also, an architect, Rick Weiss, had also looked at the attic for where the areas of heat were impacting that, And he did devise a plan for trying to contain some of the heat. And we haven't implemented that because we haven't seen the return of the damage. We think that by correcting the gutters and that we fix the problem for now.
Okay, so the sort of thing that I was thinking about wasn't related to ice damming. It was more related to vapor barrier and moisture migration, so we're lower down in the building.
Mm-hmm.
So a conversation that you would want to have with your team.
Yep. And that is something that we have asked them to take a look at, because we did do that blown in cellulose insulation several years ago. So that was a significant change to our building. So we are monitoring that to see how that has impacted the moisture.
Okay. All right.
So Sarah, it's Kathy.
Yes. Hi, Kathy.
What is the insulation you put in a few years ago, Jane?
We did the blown in cellulose.
Okay.
And so that sometimes has a tendency to settle. And if it gets wet, it doesn't dry out very easily.
Doesn't dry out, yeah, okay.
Other comments? All right. Not hearing any on a motion to approve. Marguerite Purnell.
Aye.
Tom Elmore.
Aye.
Karen Gilvarg.
Aye.
Kathy Maher.
Aye.
Christine Nelson.
Aye.
Sarah Nelson abstain, and Sarah Sportman.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay. On to the next agenda item, which is 5H for New Milford. And this too, I didn't have the motion.
Okay. I have it up.
Okay.
So the Historic Preservation Council votes to recommend the award of a Historic Restoration Fund grant funded by the Community Investment Act of the State of Connecticut to the below listed applicant in the amount shown. All grant guidelines and state requirements shall be met by the below listed applicant upon receipt of a grant as administered by the Department of Economic and Community Development. Staff recommends this application for funding. The applicant is the town of New Milford. The project is roof replacement of the failing asphalt shingle roof at the Sherman Town Hall to a historically documented raised seam metal roof and repairing the existing Yankee gutter system soffit and fascia. The amount is $100,000.
Is there a motion to move this?
Kathy, motion to move?
In a second?
I'll second, Karen.
Karen, okay.
And some background. The SHPO office recommends this application for funding. Tammy Reardon, who wrote the grant application, is on the phone and can answer additional questions you may have. The town of New Milford requests $100,000 to replace the failing 20-year-old asphalt shingle roof with a standing seam metal roof that was originally on the building and is shown in many historic photographs. While the roof is replaced, Silver Petrocelli Associates completed a conditions assessment, recommendations, and construction documents to go out to bid with. The town has committed the entire project cost, and pending grant approval will be placing the project out to bid for construction in late spring, early summer of 2021.
Do council members have questions or comments about this application? Kathy, your hand is up.
Yeah, interestingly, sorry, my computer screen just went dead with my notes on it. So in reading it, it says the report is very comprehensive. It's terrific, but there is no long-term plan. There was a past history timeline that was provided, but I know the HRFs do ask for a long-term preservation plan from this point moving forward, and that wasn't included. I'm sure somebody can cull one together, or there might even be one together. But that would really be helpful for us to recognize the value of the funding moving forward.
Sure. I can ask them to, yeah, it looks like it ends in 2018. So I can ask them to prepare a future document.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Or Tammy, do you have that document that we could follow up to the council with?
I do not have a document on hand with me to follow up with the council. I certainly can have one created. from the preservation information that was included in the application, you can see that the town of New Milford has a very dedicated facilities maintenance staff and are very precise and alert to the historic properties of all of our buildings, including the Roger Sherman Town Hall, which tends to get most of their attention when it comes to major repairs.
Thank you, Tammy. Other comments? And Kathy, just to verify, you're comfortable moving forward with this application?
Yeah, I think that they'll provide it for the future. They've got the information, they're aware of their sites, so it would just be very nice to have on record.
Okay. Any other comments or questions before I take a vote? All right. Not hearing any. On a roll call vote to approve, Marguerite Cornell.
Aye.
Tom Elmont.
Aye.
Karen Gilberg.
Aye.
Kathy Maher.
Aye.
Christine Nelson.
Aye.
Sarah Nelson. Abstain. Gee, who do I think was going to speak for me? Sorry, I was listening to something outside the door. And Sarah Sportman.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. All right, the next application is 5I.
Thank you.
The New England Hebrew Farmers.
Yep, I can read that too if you need me to.
Yeah, because I didn't have a motion. Was there a motion for these last three that I just didn't find?
I included all motions in one sheet, and I'm not sure if they're in Dropbox under another file, but I emailed them out. So, but I have it here. I can read it and then put it in Dropbox afterwards.
Okay, and just for the future, to have the motion with the packet is very helpful for orientation.
Okay.
In the future. Thanks, Erin. But yes, please read it today.
Okay. The Historic Preservation Council votes to recommend the award of a Historic Restoration Fund grant funded by the Community Investment Act of the State of Connecticut to the below listed applicant in the amount shown. All grant guidelines and state requirements shall be met by the below listed applicant upon receipt of a grant as administered by the Department of Economic and Community Development. Staff recommends the application for funding. The applicant is the New England Hebrew Farmers of the Emmanuel Society. The project is stabilization of the remaining fieldstone rubble from the Synagogue Foundation of 1892, and the amount is $9,000.
Is there a motion to move this?
Move the item.
Karen, and a second.
Kathy, second.
Kathy Maher, second.
And some background, the SHPO recommends this project for funding. Nancy Savin wrote this grant application, and I'm happy to bring any questions to her. Nancy and others from the New England Hebrew Farmer Society have worked closely with our office to prepare a National Register nomination and Archaeological Field School. The Society requests $9,000 for the stabilization of the synagogue foundation and photo documentation of the process. The Society commissioned HPI of Westport, Connecticut to create a work plan which will be followed.
Okay, are there questions on this? Okay, I'm going to start. I'm not hearing anybody else. I've got a question about the budget, and I'm just trying to bring it up because I was trying to understand it. So the budget seems to be in two parts. There seems to be the masonry repairs, and then there seems to be another budget line item for professional services, which is related to photo documentation.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so the HRF grant, as I understood it previously, did not cover professional services. Can you just kind of explain this in that context?
I believe it was just to make sure that they had all the work on record so that if anything, let's see. I'm just trying to find the explanation for it. So So it looks like it should be before and after the masonry repairs to preserve the nomination on record with a detailed historic narrative that's required. I'm not sure if this was something put in place because it's has an archaeology component to it, but I can follow up. And if that needs to be removed from the budget, we can either bring it back to the council or take it out.
So just from my perspective, the project is a worthy project. So this is really a question about this particular cost item. And I understand the necessity to document things before and after, but I don't see the difference between that kind of professional services in concert with a grant and an architect or engineer's professional services during contract administration, which would cover the same thing. And so if the intention of the HRF grant is still to be bricks and mortars only, then I think you've opened the door to going in a direction that the grant didn't intend, unless you were intending to modify the grant. So those would just be the questions that I would raise.
I don't think we intend to modify the grant, so we can remove it. I don't know if you need a new motion for the new amount, or I'm happy to do whatever needs to be done.
We can revise the motion. So then what we would need to do is a two-step process. First is to vote on the revised motion language. And once that's been approved, then we would vote on the approval of the grant with that revised motion language, which sounds cumbersome, but it's the sort of Robert's Rules ways to do it. I'm going to open this to other council members if they're comfortable revising the motion to remove the cost for the professional services and just show the bricks and mortar.
Yeah, I'm going to admit that I found the whole grant very confusing. So Sarah, I'm glad you brought that up. And I think the budget is equally as confusing. And I agree that it's definitely a worthy project to do, but it would be really helpful to see something really just cleaned.
Okay, so, and that can be, instead of revising the motion language, we can just table it till next month to allow a more comprehensive review.
I hate to delay a project, but I would appreciate that, see if anybody else agrees.
This is Marguerite. I do agree with Kathy. It's confusing, and I think it should be clarified before we vote on it.
Is it the work plan that needs to be modified or the narrative?
I think a little bit of both, Erin.
Okay.
Okay, Karen, your feeling?
Yes, I did find it confusing. I hope this doesn't have an impact on the project overall. Do you know, Erin?
I know that they wanted to start this month, but I think waiting another month wouldn't be the end of the world. So I'm happy to table it. Oh, wait, Kathy looks like she has her hand up, and she's been very involved in this project.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I can help based on all of your questions. I do know that they wanted to move forward because the property is actually being donated to the Archaeology Conservancy. And I believe they're signing that agreement at the end of March. So I just don't know if they wanted to finish the work prior to signing it over, because I don't know if that creates some legal problems, you know, having outstanding work to be done on the property. So I do know that there was that timeline involved. As far as the professional services, what they wanted to do, and you're right, this may not be an HRF covered activity, so it may be easier to just remove it. They wanted to do a once the work was completed, a post documentation to create a baseline for tracking future, impacts to the property in terms of, is there additional stone movement? Have they really achieved what they wanted to in this small rehabilitation?
And those are worthy endeavors to see whether they're continuing to have movement. That's going to be, I would think, out of a different funding bucket from you.
Yeah, I think that I think you are absolutely right there. In terms of the project, there has been a lot of back and forth in terms of what it would really look like. So the narrative could be expanded, and I will say I just briefly went through the application. I don't know how much more detail you would want to see in terms of the narrative of what is actually being done. So, but what I do think might help that I did not see in the application is good photographs of what the existing conditions are. And so I think that's where the disconnect is. So there are portions of the foundation wall that have toppled over. There's a lot of weed growth around everything that's sort of tearing everything apart, which is why, we talked about putting the stone dust path around it. But I think it's really hard to conceptualize it without those photographs. So I think even more so than the narrative would be to see those.
Yeah.
Okay, I can, maybe I will try to match up some photographs with the work plan that HPI put forward. Because I think the work plan is pretty descriptive, and then I can just take some photos of that match up. Would that be helpful?
I think any kind of supplemental information is going to help this. The question is that council was debating with all of your input was whether we were going to table the application till next month to allow for more material to come together, clarification, and then the second option was to actually just revise the motion to vote on the lesser amount, which was the cost of the bricks and mortar work only. So I had heard from Kathy and Marguerite, who were both saying they wanted supplemental information. Karen wanted supplemental, but she was concerned about the timeline. I hadn't heard from Tom and Christine yet. So Tom,
I guess I would like a clearer entire page.
Okay.
I'm sorry about the timeline, but I think that helps us as we move things forward.
And Christine?
I don't really have any specific comments on it.
Okay. All right. So, and Kathy, you said that there was a pending transfer that was going to happen in March, and they were trying to get the work done potentially before.
Yeah, that's my understanding, although I'm also no mortar expert and there's freezing temperatures out right now. So looking at the kind of environment, I don't know if it's really possible right now.
Well, that was going to be my question to you, that unless they were actually building a tent and heating it, which I don't think their budget indicates, that the mortar wouldn't be starting for a while unless it was temporary protection. Okay. I think what I'm hearing is that the majority of the council members would like to table this to allow a sort of cleaner presentation. Council members, would one of you like to make a motion to table without prejudice to the February 3rd, 2021 agenda?
Sure. It's Kathy, table to the table without prejudice to the February meeting.
February 3rd, 2021. Okay.
February 3rd, 2021.
Okay.
Marguerite,
Sarah?
second.
I'm sorry, who was the second?
Marguerite.
Okay, Marguerite was the second. All right, on a motion to approve the tabling, Marguerite Carnell,
Aye.
Tom Elmore,
Aye.
Karen Gilbart,
Aye.
Kathy Maher,
Aye.
Christine Nelson,
Aye.
Sarah Nelson abstain, and Sarah Sportman.
Aye.
Okay, the motion to table is approved.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, the next thing on the agenda is threatened properties update. Is Todd on the line?
Yeah, yes, I am. All right. So I do have an update on Stanford. The information that we have thus far is that at least 2 bays are going to have to come down on the Blickendorfer. There's no way around it. The presentation by BLT to EPA and DEEP is that they need to take down 7 bays. And right now the discussion between the Attorney General's office, the city, and BLT is how many do we really need to take down? So our goal here is to take down the least amount, which might be 3 or 4. It still may be 7. We have a plan that we're working with a couple structural engineers that we will present to BLT, a progressive plan where we would take down those 2 bays, open it up, be able to put a boring machine in and test. And if that bay is contaminated, we remove that bay and then do it again. The question now is how far we can get with the equipment that is available. So that information is forthcoming. Also, right now, we're kind of paused to the middle of the month while BLT and the city have discussions on whether they can relocate the houses for to save them and widen the road. So we are waiting to hear back from the city on what they and BLT have been discussing. So that's Stanford right now. And the only other thing, Bridgewater is still moving forward, and we met with them last week with a plan for a nonprofit to take over the Grange. We're not quite done with that yet, though. And then lastly is Manchester. I said that was something that we were trying to negotiate before coming to you. Their deadline was last Friday. They asked for an extension to the end of this week. And we said, sure, but, you know, Friday, we're going to either have them, they're either going to agree not to demo or agree to sign another document with an extension saying they won't damage the building, or third, they would be coming in for February HPC meeting. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank
Todd.
you.
Great. Thanks, guys.
Okay. So next on the agenda is the report on the State Historic Preservation Office. Jonathan?
Good morning, everyone. As always, I will just start by thanking the SHPO staff for everything that they have done over the past month, all their hard work. I don't have a ton to report on since our last meeting in December, but we are continuing to work on getting all the documentation ready to send out to potential new members of this council. And my hope is that the letters will be going out to the names on our list in the next week or 2. And I suspect that I'll have a big update on that, on the status of that effort by the next meeting in February for sure. We're also excited to be restarting the internship program at the SHPO. Erin and I had a great conversation with a candidate yesterday, and we hope to be able to bring her on board shortly. And again, I'll have more specific information on that by the February meeting. And finally, the SHPO is going to be, the SHPO staff is going to be taking some time to take a sort of a step back and look at the Connecticut statewide historic preservation plan and assess assessing where the state is with regards to accomplishing the goals that were laid out in that plan. The plan covers the period from 2018 to 2023. So we're at the halfway mark of that period now. So it's a good time to sort of do some self-evaluation. And related to this effort, and one of the key goals in the plan, which is diversifying both the audiences that we reach and the resource types that we're identifying and evaluating. SHPO staff is also planning to look at how we can better incorporate equity and diversity into the programs that we do both internally and also the work that we are doing with our many partners. So as that effort moves forward, I will certainly be able to update you on that. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
Doesn't sound like it. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you, Sarah.
The report on the museum properties, Liz.
Hi, everybody. I don't have too much to report, but just in brief, restoration on the Prudence Crandall Museum continues, and I just again want to give a shout out to Sarah Sportman and FOSA, the Friends of the State archaeologist, who, working in tandem with Kathy, our own Kathy Labadia, have really put in so much work to help with forwarding the project in terms of archaeology. And that has just been an invaluable resource. So we've had lots of unexpected issues, both under the ground and within the building. And I was able to visit the site yesterday, and I met with Joni and DiMartino, our curator, and Erica Chicala to walk through and view the work. And it's really amazing to see the building naked inside, to see what's behind the plaster and how the ceilings are being supported while the most invasive work is being done. The attic flooring is now secured, and concrete has been poured in the basement, and it makes both spaces feel very different. The attic flooring does not look very different. It was only a very small area that was actually replaced, but it's not like you don't step on the bottom of one board and have the other end of it pop up anymore. So that's kind of exciting. I did want to share with you, and this isn't really for the minutes, it's not public knowledge yet, but one of the reasons that I was up there, and SHPO staff will see that there's an email for them, was because Troy, who is our construction manager, actually found evidence of the charred timbers in the northeast corner of the room. And for those of you who are familiar with the Crandall story, this is the room that Crandall and the students referred to as the keeping room. And it's the room where a fire was set, folks attempted to burn down the building in January of 1834. And we had thought that there probably would be no more evidence, but we had shared the fact that there might be evidence that still exists, and with Troy, so that as they were working in that room, it was brought to, things would stop if they found it, or at least it would be brought to our attention. And so yesterday was the day. So it's quite exciting, and hopefully we'll have a couple of SHPO staff who will come in and take a look, and then maybe we'll get some outside expertise to come in and verify it. But that really, after seeing that, that really created quite a discussion about what the future visitor experience is going to be in that room, which will be the pivotal interpretive experience for visitors. So it's really, really exciting. But of course, now we want to leave some of that evidence on display. So that will change maybe a little bit about how we have to move forward in that room. So it's all very exciting, but it has not been confirmed yet. So I would just ask that you don't share it far and wide. At Old Newgate Prison, we have heat in the white storage barn, and Morgan Bangle has been working through with her way through an inventory at that building. At the same time, she's working with the state fire marshal to plan for a change of use to the structure, which is currently noted as storage, to a public building. The long-term plan, which is really highly feasible, is that we can use it for school groups, and we can also use it as we continue the partnership with the Department of Corrections and the Department of Justice, Connecticut Department of Justice, DOJ, for training purposes. They do a lot of empathy explorations in their curriculum, And we've had folks out to the site who plan those, who really would like to be taking employees through the site and having conversations there. So we need to get a bathroom in that building. So that's sort of next on the docket. But all of these changes, of course, will take money, and we do need to sort of see what's going to be moving ahead in terms of what the state's fiscal situation is going to be and how that will affect our funding at SHPO. So that's really exciting as well. The new fire and security system, the long-awaited new fire and security system at Henry Whitfield Museum started being installed yesterday. Michelle Parrish and Chris Collins are going to be on site for the next 2 weeks. Chris has been working on site, but Michelle has mostly been at home. But we're excited as that moves forward, and it's been a very big project, which has involved the full SHPO team, because obviously installation of these systems is invasive work. We've also created a to-do list on all of the recommendations from the CAP reports, and we're going to begin looking at that, prioritizing, and potentially going out to bid on some of the smaller things at least. And this is all at the same time that the museum staff is working on a revised mission statement and planning for reopening. Andrew Rowan of the Eric Sloan Museum has completed the installation that I mentioned last month of the old chestnut boards, which were donated by the Friends of Eric Sloan at the entranceway to the artist studio. They look gorgeous. It used to be Humasote, and this totally changes the feel of that room. I haven't been there, but I have seen pictures and video. He's been busy removing some small trees and working. He's been great. Deep has been really happy to be able to work with him. Their property adjoins our property. And so staff from Deep have been out there as well doing maintenance, property maintenance. And we're also planning a webinar series for this that will start probably this March, to really tee off the grand 2-year delay reopening of the museum that will happen sometime between June and October of this year. Sorry, we're in the year. But those webinars are going to bring in speakers who will look at Sloan as an artist, an author, a collector, really try to talk about Sloan the man, whose life hasn't really been well documented by the museum. We also have a new guide to the paintings in the museum collection that was written by Jim Mauk, who is a Sloan scholar, and he's the past president of the Friends of Eric Sloan. I haven't seen it yet. He sent it to me in Hartford, and I will be going into Hartford next week, and so I'll get a chance to see it. But the funding for that book was made possible partially through funding from the state's dedicated Eric Sloan Fund, and it's going to be used in the gallery, and there will be it'll be the basis for an online component, and it will be available for purchase. So even though it's been Christmas and New Year's, lots of work continues. So really happy to be able to share that with you. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take them. Sarah, you're on mute, I think. Can everybody else hear Sarah? Because I cannot.
I cannot.
Okay, Sarah, we can't hear you. I'm sorry.
She is not muted as far as I can tell.
Sometimes you have to log off and go back on. That has been my experience. So
Okay, we'll give Sarah a minute to come back on.
Liz, this is Tom Elmore. I thought you should know that I was going after a cultural landscape project, and in the materials that were provided, some reference to one of the Eric Sloan books. And the project is either in Maine or out in Tennessee. So pretty far afield, and it caught my.
That's really cool, Tom. I have found that our Andrew, who's the new curator, has come in from out of state, and one of the things that I have found is that he has also, he'll tell me that he was talking to his friends in Virginia or talking to his friends in West Virginia, and his network also includes just a lot of people who use the Eric Sloan books as basic references, well outside of Connecticut, and so it opens up. It's really given us. It's made us all excited about the ability to be moving forward with telling a story that really no one has told the full story of Eric Sloan's life. It doesn't exist. There's not a book. There's nothing out there in one place. So we're very excited to be able to do this. And we do work with Charmaine. Oh, goodness me. It's not Sloan, and I'm forgetting her last name. But Cha-Cha. Cha-Cha is Eric Sloan's stepdaughter. So, and her children who also knew Eric Sloan. And there's still slews of people who actually knew Eric Sloan. The ones who knew him very well are fewer and fewer, unfortunately. But okay, Sarah, you're back, I think.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Awesome. Okay. Don't know what that was about. It's good to be back. All right, so then the next thing on the agenda was liaison with public and private agencies. So Jane, if you're still on the line.
Yes, I'm here. Good morning, everyone. So with the new year, Preservation Connecticut is looking to start a new session of our Talking About Preservation Wednesday noontime chats. During these COVID times, we found that this has been a really great engagement tool. Over the past few months, we've had over 600 folks tune in to learn about a wide array of preservation issues and topics. So any topics that any council members would like to see us address, please feel free to reach out, or if you have anything yourself you'd like to present, we're always open to having more guests. And as always, we look to our SHPO friends to present with us. And I think we'll have Jonathan on the schedule sometime soon. And we're also looking to have Connecticut Landmarks will be presenting. There's a new director there, Aaron Markovich, who has a strong background in historic preservation. And he'll be bringing some staff on to talk about the preservation and stewardship work that they'll be doing at their sites. We have Sarah Bronin lined up to speak about her initiative, Desegregate Connecticut, pushing to promote equality in land use laws. And she has a strong legislative agenda that she's working towards this year, and many other subjects as well. So please join us on Wednesdays at noon and let me know of any other topics you'd like to see us do. And also to kick off the new year, our staff in January always gets together with sister organizations, all of the New England statewide and New York. Tomorrow and Friday, we'll be convening virtually to do some team building and professional development. And it's always really great to get together with our colleagues and share best practices and noodle on problems that everyone's dealing with together, and to put forth some great ideas and energy for the new year. So Happy New Year, everyone, and we're looking forward to doing a lot of good work together.
Thank you, Jane. Mary Falvey, is she still on the line?
Here, can you hear me?
We can.
Good. Yeah, I'm still here. Not much last month. We will be, of course, looking forward to the governor's proposal for the budget, and we will keep a keen eye on the CIA funding. Make sure we don't have the same problem we did last year with a proposed removal of funds. The CIA coalition met in the middle of December, and we are right now looking at doing a virtual lobby sometime in April. And what that will consist of at this point is just having all of us get to our constituents and fill up the legislature's email inboxes with emails from all of us who have benefited and used the CIA funding to let them know how important that is in their district and all the things that fund achieves, so that hopefully we won't have to worry about any sweeps for that. But I think that's all I really have to report for now.
Thank you, Mary. Is there anyone here to speak at the public forum? Okay, I don't hear anybody. Don't see any hands raised. So the next regularly scheduled council meeting is going to be Wednesday, February 3rd at 9:30. Oh, Kathy, your hand is up.
Yeah, before we break, I just had a new business item. I don't know if anybody knows this, but we found out yesterday that Save America's Treasures, which are grants through the national parks, Liz, maybe you know about this, extended their deadline for Save America's Treasures grants. It was supposed to be December 22nd. It is now January 26th. So they're pretty big, they're comprehensive. The ceiling is $500,000. So the opportunity is out there. They're not easy to put together because you need all kinds of DUNS and package numbers and everything, but there might be a few sites that aren't aware. I wasn't aware of it. And usually, I'm so on the ball with those things. So that might be something that some projects might want to know about, that they could get it pulled together and submitted.
Thank you, Kathy. Any other items before we break? Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Kathy, motion to adjourn?
And a second?
Karen, I'll second.
My God.
Just having so much fun.
Yeah. All right. All those in favor, just show of hands. Okay. I can see you all. Very good. Thank you so much. Have a good month, everybody.
Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you. Happy New
Take
Year.
care.
Happy
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
So.